My name is Betsey Brewer. I'm the executive director of Earth Limited, and I am also the zoological director of Southwick Zoo.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so we got a return guest today who I am really excited to have back on. Y'all know that we have an absolute love affair with Southwick's Zoo. And the person who is, I'm just going to say the person who runs it. I don't really know all of the details, but good enough. She's awesome. She's the person who loves it. We love her. Betsey Brewer is back on the podcast to celebrate the fact that the nonprofit that they run, Earth Limited, has a brand new building opening up soon at Southwick's Zoo that's really going to just lead to a lot of amazing and cool opportunities for the people at the zoo to connect with children and adults alike. And I love this episode for a couple of reasons. First of all, because new things are always cool and exciting and fun. Second of all, because Betsey can just talk. And as a podcast interviewer, that makes my life so much easier. And as a podcast listener, that makes it so much entertaining for you all. Anytime I'm not pulling teeth is a great time. And there was no dentist required for this interview. And you are going to hear some name drops of people who you will recognize from other discussions on the podcast. You're going to hear us talk about Danny a little bit. You're going to hear Wouter Stillard come up. You're going to hear some things. There's some really cool stuff going on at Southwick Zoo, and it's not just the Earth building. You're actually going to get kind of a scoop here about something that will be coming to the zoo in the next couple of years that I've known about for a while now and is going to be really exciting. So I can't wait for y'all to hear it and to check it out. So we'll get to that in a moment. But before we do, a quick reminder to make sure you're following along at Rossifari on the socials, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok machine. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes, our interview episodes on Tuesdays or our Zoo News episodes on Fridays. And with all of that said, here is my interview with Betsey Brewer of Earth Limited and Southwick's Zoo. This building is a new addition to the zoo family and to the Earth family.
It's so exciting.
I'm very excited to be here, and I'm seeing all the construction stuff out the windows. So let's dive right in. Tell me what's going on.
Well, we started this project a couple years ago, and this, where we're sitting now in the offices, was originally someone's home. It was my cousin's home. And my nonprofit purchased the home from him. And I've had this vision about building an Earth Center for a long, long time, like 30 years. So it's been...
That is a long time.
It's been a long time. And, you know, when COVID hit, we were just about ready to start the construction, and COVID hit. And then the prices of everything went through the roof. So we cut the project in half. But as we expand, we will be able to add on and do some other things. But the vision keeps changing. It keeps evolving. So back in the day when I thought about an Earth Center, I thought of having like a tree of life in the middle of it, and you would walk around the tree and come up into it. And of course, we're now in the age of technology. And I always thought that people loved doing adventure travel. And then I realized they want to see adventure travel, but they don't actually want to do it. So I had a small ecolodge in Honduras that I sold, and I started concentrating on this. And what we are trying to do is have a connection center where people come in and they connect with wildlife and they connect with nature. And we offered different programs for our visitors and our members to come in. And that will keep evolving too. Our goal right now is to put up our LED screen in the new center part that will be, it's like 16 feet long, and kids can sit in front of it and actually feel like they're part of an adventure. So we're going to show a safari and rainforest treks and things like that. And also, I've talked to several kids, because we have a lot of kids members that are really engaged with Southwick Zoo and with Earth, what they would like to see, what would be important to them. So we're going to have some animal ambassador interactions where people will sit and our animals that we use in education and our animal ambassadors will come out and meet people. And some of them, of course, you'll be able to touch and interact with. And the goal is to form that intimate connection. I don't know if you've heard of the term biophilia, that connecting with nature and with animals makes us better and keeps us grounded. And I think it's a really important component for all of everything, our spirituality, our connect with our emotions and hit our heartstrings and make us care more. I think when we care about something and we form an attachment to it, we will do better living on this planet.
No, I've never heard that word before, but I mean, I'm glad that I just did, because that's literally my entire philosophy and what led me to love zoos and aquariums and start this podcast and all of that. So biophilia, I like that.
Yeah,
that's a really good word.
Very cool concept.
Yeah. No, the whole reason that I launched this thing and even fell in love with zoos and stuff was because I was around a lot of toxic individuals. And I would find that if I could get out into nature or get to a zoo or something like that, it would soothe me and calm me down and prep me to go back into that more toxic situation without, being toxic myself.
Right.
So that's really cool. That's a great concept. And a whole building dedicated to that's pretty cool.
And I think being like what you just said, like being around a lot of toxicity in our lives, right? Whether it's other people or whether it's, pollution or whatever it happens to be. For me, it's trash on the roads. That makes me cringe.
Yeah.
That people throw trash out. It's beyond me, but it's not only here, it's in other cultures too. But I think that connection and that grounding and, even just taking your shoes off and walking in the dirt or the grass gives you a different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something we have this whole beautiful backyard, and we also have a rooftop area.
Nice.
So I want to really create this space around this center, and it'll take time, time and money, but create the space that grounds people, that makes you feel connected. I also been saying for years, I want to have a little guinea pig village or guinea pig town with maybe a church and a saloon or something. I don't know. But where people can go and sit in with the guinea pigs and, for a small fee, you could get a piece of lettuce to feed them just to get that connection with an animal. And we're always getting calls from the animal control officer where you take in guinea pigs, people get them for pets. And then the kids, get disinterested. And so we're also going to do something here about that as well, about pets. And one of the reasons that I thought of that was last year, my granddaughter had a dance competition in New Jersey, and they were staying at the Jersey Shore. And she came home with a little plastic bucket with a hermit crab in it. And she said, I bought this walking down the boardwalk on the beach. And the guy said, just leave it in the bucket and it'll be fine. Well, that's not the case.
No.
Hermit crabs require a lot of different food variations and waters and things like that. So I taught her about that. And we are actually going to put the hermit crab on exhibit here. Because again, she lost interest and I ended up with the hermit crab. So we're going to do a little area here about what makes good pets and what you shouldn't be doing and what people shouldn't be selling on a boardwalk in New Jersey. And We also have a couple small sulcata tortoises that were taken in because somebody left them. And we're going to talk about pangolins,
Nice.
which are the most trafficked animal in the world, which a lot of people don't even know what a pangolin is. And if I wasn't in this industry, I probably wouldn't know either.
Yeah, no, I didn't find out until I started doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're a small animal, really cool looking animal if anybody wants to look it up on the internet. And the problem with pangolins is you can pick them right up. They'll roll into a ball. And that's why they're so trafficked. And they're trafficked for the same reason that rhinos are, because of their scales that in traditional Asian culture, people seem to think it has medicinal purposes, like rhino horn, which is merely hair.
Yeah, it does not.
It does not.
No.
And actually, scientists in China have said that. This does nothing, but culture runs very deep.
Yes.
Extremely deep. Our belief system, and we have them too, run very deep. And so it's very difficult to change, an entire culture. But hopefully we're getting the word out about a lot of these different things. So as my crazy mind keeps working and I keep coming up with new ideas, we will be implementing this, around our grounds. And I wish I could live here.
I do notice that you've already moved your office into here.
Oh, yeah.
This place is nowhere near ready to go yet. But your office, you're already here. Yeah.
I just feel like the energy it's amazing. I was just walking around outside. It's a cold, dreary day. And I was just feeling like the vibe. It's such a good vibe. As I look out my window, I can see the zebras.
Yeah.
And the scimitar horned oryx, they're right over there. And when members enter here in school groups, you'll be walking in between the beautiful African plains, which is about 5 or 6 acres, and it contains ostriches, scimitar horned oryx, and zebras. And on the other side of that is the giraffe habitat, which is beautiful. And I just can't wait for people to experience it. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. So is there an opening date yet? Or is this still...
We're going to do a soft opening for our Winos for Rhinos.
Okay.
Very popular event.
Nice.
Of course, everybody likes wine and everybody likes rhinos, right? So we do that event this year. It's going to be on a Friday night in August. We have our friends from Worthwhile Africa coming out from South Africa to speak and talk. And it's a fun event. It's engaging, and we're going to have it here. That will be our only event till we do our ribbon cutting in September. That will be the only event that we actually offer here. We're hoping the road into the zoo will be completed, hopefully by the end of August, because it's kind of hard to have the building separate when you can't get to it from the zoo.
Right.
You'd have to drive down the road. But once the road is completed, it'll be totally different. And even the road's going to be cool, right? It's going to wind around in between those two beautiful habitats.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I like that. So this is full speed ahead.
It is. It was a little depressing for a while with the cost of materials and all of that. It was really hard to move forward. And then it seemed to take forever. We were supposed to open last fall, so a year later. But, everyone says that, oh, welcome to construction, right? So, and then, now we have to get the details. So, and that's an evolution because we have short attention spans. Let's face it, right? People's minds change and interests change, and we'll see where we go.
Right.
But we will have some animal exhibits. The ones I'm thinking of, kids are really into bugs these days,
Really?
Bugs are the thing.
That's cool.
So I want to have a leaf cutter ant exhibit.
Yes.
And just to talk about how they all work together is astounding to me, right? And I want to do the plantings outside with trails that wind around so that we have plants that attract bees, plants that attract butterflies and hummingbirds. And it will be a nice, serene, peaceful area. But as you walk along, there is going to be some play apparatuses for kids, so we can incorporate the parents and the kids. And we're also going to have a really nice patio back here. So if the kids are moseying around the property and playing on the play equipment, the parents can sit down, and we're going to have a nice coffee station and hang out. And eventually we'll have beer and wine so we can do evening events. And like I said, we have the rooftop area. Eventually we'll have a telescope and a big TV up there, which will connect. So while somebody's looking through the telescope, the other people can see it on the TV.
Oh, wow. That's really
so
cool.
Everybody can share in that experience.
Wow. Fancy technology. I like it.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So here's a question for you. I've known you for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, your mind goes in a million different directions at once, and I'm the same way. How do you settle on figuring out, like, it takes a while to go from, hey, I want leafcutter ants, to actually having a leafcutter ant exhibit or whatever. So what is the process like for you to have these 1,000 ideas that you want to do and settle on the 10 or whatever that number is that you're going to have at opening?
I ask kids.
Okay.
I always say, what is of interest to you? And if we can accommodate the children and then offer programs for the adults, it's a win-win, right? I think people like to bring their kids with them pretty much everywhere. When I was a kid, I was left at home, right? My parents would go off and do their things, but now it's really more focused for an entire family experience. And that's really what I want to promote. I know that a lot of adults don't like to be around what we call creepy crawlers, right? A lot of times people aren't interested in snakes and stuff like that. So I'm trying to choose animals that I think will give people more of an education and understanding of without it being kind of creepy and crawly. Like, I thought about leafcutter ants because of the incredible societies they create and how they work mutualistically. And I thought that would be a really fun thing for people to watch. And, a lot of people will say to me, oh, I haven't been to Southwick Zoo in years because the kids are grown. Mm-hmm. And you don't need the kids to come with you. I find going to a zoo is much more of a fun experience when you're not following the kids around, when you can take your own time, when you can actually watch the behaviors of the animals. We have a very large primate collection here, and I just love watching the interactions and the behaviors. And I always tell, moms, you can learn a lot about how to teach your kids from watching, a primate's behavior. There's a lot of moms being patient in the primate world. The kids, just be patient, but be consistent. And when you've had enough, you've had enough. And that's the end of the story. Maybe the youngster goes off screaming, but that's it. And it's funny because you watch the learned behavior. There's a lot of learned behavior. And I find that fascinating in a zoo setting and in a wild environment too. And, as the wild continues to diminish, we'll need zoos more and more and more as what I would call an arc, right? Hopefully be able to accommodate and save some of our wild lands and reintroduce or repatriate animals back out into the wild.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's cool to see some of the new stuff that's happening. I was just reading about some gorillas that were rewilded after confiscation. And if you would have told me that could happen, I would have said probably not,
Yeah, because they have so much learned behavior, right?
But there it is. And then we'll see how they do. It just happened. But we're learning and we're trying stuff, and it's very cool.
It is very cool. And I have to say that one of our zookeepers said to me, when we did a repatriation project for our trumpeter swans, that his career had come full circle because of that. And actually, you had interviewed Sam Russick, and she, before she went to Kansas, she went with us on the trip to Iowa, where we released the trumpeter swans. And it was so rewarding. When you're working in conservation, you don't always get a lot of good results,
right?
So when you do, it's such an accomplishment. And right now I'm raising cheetah cubs. We have our female cheetahs in a animal management plan for breeding. And our cheetah had cubs and she didn't take care of them. First time mom, not unusual, it happens. And I look at humans when you're a first time mom and the changes that happen as you have another child.
Yeah, so. Danny rejected Raina. And no, I'm just kidding.
But you learn a lot, right?
Oh, yeah, no.
From one to the next, you're like, oh, I'm not going to make those same mistakes. But anyway, she didn't take care of them. So I have 3 cheetah cubs, and I'm amazed by how weak and small they were born, and then discovered that only 5% of cheetahs even survive the wild being born. So I feel very fortunate to be able to tell their story, and hopefully someday with our animal management plans for cheetahs that they will be returned to the wild. And that's rewarding, and to think of as itself, you know. The cheetahs that we have here, we're planning on a really cool program for.
I know.
We are going to develop a cheetah run.
I'm excited.
It's so exciting. And a lot of times I don't think people realize too that the interactions that we do are enriching for humans, but they're also enriching for the animals. So cheetahs are a cat that run. They run fast. They run distances, short distances, very, very fast. So it's important for us to encourage, our animals to deliver their species typical behavior, right? So for cheetahs, that's short spurts of running. And we'd like to develop that program and also encourage people to come see that, to marvel in the adaptations that a cheetah has. Its flexible backbone to bend and to run and to turn corners. Very different from a lion, right? We had somebody complain the other day that why were our lions sleeping? Well, they sleep like 20 hours a day, and they are the biggest couch potatoes happening. The females are the hunters, the males kind of lounge around, and they're just different. They're just a different species. So it's fun to learn all about not only their adaptations, but their behaviors as well.
Yeah,
so
no,
I find it just fascinating. I find
it.
Human behavior fascinating.
Oh, yeah. And I think you can learn a lot about humans from animals. I will always say that the thing that has made me the parent that I am is doing this podcast and studying animal behavior stuff, because learning from people like Danny, from people like Wouter Stillard, from, people who have taught me about how to interact well with animals, then when my son does something, instead of losing my, calm and yelling and punishing and stuff, I'm like, no, positive reinforcement. No. Now, you can talk to them. We speak the same language. So it's a little bit easier to communicate certain things with Miles than it is to like a sea lion that I work with.
Right.
But I always take an approach of what have I learned from the behaviorists that I respect in the animal world. Now, how do I apply that to my son? And we have an amazing relationship.
Yeah, and that's so awesome.
Yeah. And
positive reinforcement is awesome. It's wonderful. I'm personally old school. I do believe in some punishment. So, but only when absolutely necessary.
Yes.
And only to control the behaviors and to work with the animals. And I believe that with kids too.
Yeah.
It's like watching the monkeys. There comes a point where, okay, that's enough. We've had enough. But the positive reinforcement is awesome. I always tell people, try it with your spouse.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm so, I know we're going off Earth for a second, but the cheetah run. So I was recently at Wildlife World Zoo, and I was there for a week with their sea lion team, and Wouter Stillard was out there. And
yes, he's been working there.
Yeah, and we ended up living together for that week.
How cool is that?
So I got an entire behavior education every night.
He's a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, and he doesn't stop talking about it, which I love. But he just, it's his brain constantly.
Yeah, and he's so passionate.
And he mentioned, the cheetah run, and he obviously off the record. But now that you brought it up, I can talk about it.
Absolutely.
But I was losing my mind. I'm so excited. I can't wait to come back and see it.
Yeah,
that's very
so
cool.
It's going to take some time.
Of course, yeah.
We figure that we'll probably have it up and going in about maybe 2 years, hopefully less, but we'll see. And as we continue with Southwick Zoo. And I think what makes us different is because we're a family-run zoo. My grandfather started it. He actually put out a donation box in 1956 after he sold off his dairy herd. And we just kind of became a zoo by default, right? It was him trading, and he got into birds, and and I think it's in all of our blood. But the thing that drives us, I think, the most is we're so passionate about it. And you have to, I call it a labor of love. You would never get into this business for any other reason. It's, it's a 24/7 thing. And I can't tell you how many animals I have raised that I've had to feed around the clock. And people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky you get to feed this." I go, "Do you want to come up at 2:00 in the morning?" When I raised the first giraffe, Molly, and she's like, what is she, like 16 or 16 now? Something like that. I was feeding her at 2:00 in the morning. It was February. And she's a giraffe, so I couldn't keep her, in my bathroom and feed her. So I was going up to the barn at 2:00 in the morning, and it was cold and icy. And I can remember falling down in the snow and on the ice like a couple times, just like, this is horrible. But she's still here and she's thriving and doing wonderfully. And I just love her to death. Love her to death. So, and I've had a lot of different animals that I've raised over the years.
I feel like, sometimes it's the, not bad behaviors, although sometimes that too, but the bad part of a good situation that almost makes you feel more connected,
I think it gives you that appreciation, right?
Yeah.
When you have to struggle, when something's like great, it's so much more rewarding, and I think I always say people seem more appreciative when they have struggled. When you haven't had struggles, you tend to complain about stuff that really doesn't matter in the big scheme of things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So I know that like the last time that we did an interview, we talked about what Earth is and everything, but that was a couple years ago, lots of new listeners. So can you give a little rundown? Because we're talking about the Earth Center, but let's explain to people who don't know yet what Earth is.
Earth is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and it stands for Environmental Awareness of Resources and Threatened Habitats. And our mission is to inspire, engage, and connect with people to protect and conserve our planet's biodiversity and future. So I can never remember that, even though I just whipped it off, but I'm reading it. So
I was going to say that was very impressive.
I know. So let's be honest here. So, and, to connect with people, that's the big thing. We want to connect with people. I love this story. I was walking with our summer camp kids a couple summers ago, and there was like these three boys, and I said, let's take a walk into the woods through the deer forest, and we'll look at the nature out there. And they said, there's an app for that. You can walk in nature on an app. And I was like, are you kidding me? Well, we want to supply the real nature, right? The real connection. So I am so excited about this. And as Earth evolves, we have the Earth Discovery Center in the zoo. And how we remain fiscally responsible is we offer memberships. And with the memberships you can come to Southwick Zoo for unlimited visits for the regular zoo season, which is April till the end of October. And then the Halloween and the Winter Wonderland are not included in that. However, by this fall, the Earth Connection Center will be open. So we will offer programs for children on the weekends. We're still working out details. I'd love to do an after-school thing. I think transportation is probably going to be a problem. So we have to work on that and hopefully get a grant or something to provide that would be wonderful. And Earth is always trying to raise money through different things that are fun. We have the Benefit Earth Bash in June, and that's a night of, cocktails and food and animal interactions and kind of twilight at the zoo. And it ends with a dinner in our tent and silent auction and stuff like that. And then I told you about the winos for rhinos, which is exciting. And we do a golf tournament in September. And then we're still thinking of things that we can do in the winter. We are going to do a Valentine's Day thing for adults.
Nice.
And we haven't worked out the details, but we're going to talk about animal breeding and different things like that. And it's going to be funny. It's going to be funny and fun for couples to come to that, or single people too. So we're always a work in progress, and I love hearing from people that have ideas, of what we could offer here. I've had a lot of people say, well, if you're doing, biophilia and we're talking about, feelings and emotions and connecting people with animals, what about wellness? So we were thinking of having some wellness offerings here. Whether we're not doing goat yoga, that's not going to happen. But, something along the lines of some wellness and talks and things like that. I know some interesting characters. So
I bet you do.
Yes, I would love to do some talks. And, at Earth Bash this year, we're going to be auctioning off a cheater training with a professional, whether it's Vouter or Susie Rapper, whoever it is,
nice,
to help train the cheetahs. So you'll be able to experience that.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's an exciting thing that's going to happen, and I just can't wait. Nice. I really can't. The future is looking so promising and bright, and I just think that as time goes on and we're learning more about, our climate changing and things that are happening on our planet, I think people will really want to connect. And we have all sorts of types of programs to talk about with kids and with adults. One year we did a plastic bag challenge, and I went into the schools and talked about, how many plastic bags we use and, what happens with plastic bags, because plastic bags are all over the world. We use like 2 trillion of them a year. It's insane. And, how they affect what we do. And, then I have people that say, well, why can't I use a plastic bag? Because you go to the grocery store, everything's already in plastic. But it's small steps that make big progress. And I don't think that people realize that, because we feel so overwhelmed. Like, what can I do to make a difference on the planet? Like, why is it going to matter? Well, if we all did just a little, it would make a big difference. But I do understand the overwhelming feeling. I'm not going to ask anybody to be a tree hugger. I like my creature comforts. I like electricity. I like air conditioning.
Yep.
But there are ways that we can work together to be helpful to the planet.
Yep. No, I agree. One thing that always inspires me, because I feel that way too sometimes, I have more reusable bags than I even know what to do with, because they always sell cute ones at zoos, and that way I can support a zoo and make sure that I'm not using plastic bags.
Absolutely.
Win-win. But then I see that, Taylor Swift flew to get dinner one night, and I love Taylor Swift, by the way, but, and did more carbon damage than all of my bags will ever be able to fix. And it can be discouraging. But the thing that always sticks with me is, that image of like the sea turtle with the straw in its nose.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To me, it's not about what can my impact be on the globe, because you're right. One big corporation is going to wipe out everything that you and I have done in a day. Mm-hmm. But to know that I'm not the person who ended up sticking a straw in a turtle's nose, or who ended up having a turtle eat my plastic bag when it got in the ocean because it thought it was a jellyfish, that means something to me. And that's kind of how, whenever I start to feel down, because, when you're in this world, when you're talking about conservation, you will have times where you're like, screw it. This is not worth it. Like, it's hard. There's so much. It feels like a losing battle sometimes. But I always think that if I can just remember that I can be the person who doesn't hurt that turtle, or who doesn't, whatever, for one animal, then that matters. And that matters to that animal. And that's what always brings me back when I struggle.
Absolutely. And, when I was working in Honduras, I remember I was walking along with someone who was visiting, and they said, oh my God, look at all this trash on the beach and people in Honduras are dirty. I'm like, that's not people in Honduras. That trash came down the Gulf Stream. That came from us. You know, and I think in a lot of flip-flops, things like that, toothbrushes, you know, we can buy non-plastic toothbrushes. That's very easy. And the one thing that we really need to focus on is repurposing things.
Yes.
You know, let's stop throwing things out. When I'm really on my game, and it doesn't always happen, believe me, but I can go about a month with just one bag of trash.
Nice.
You know, so I have to make sure, you know, I'm composting and I'm reusing things. And I think if we can do that, we can really make a huge difference. One of the greatest impacts I ever had was, and this was years ago, but it wasn't like, 40 years ago, it was like 10 years ago. I was down in New Jersey and I went by a landfill for miles and miles and miles. And the smell, and people's homes were there, the smell of the landfill. And that's when I started composting. And that's when I started saying to people, it's easy to compost. It's not that hard. There's now machines that you can buy that'll compost your material and turn it into soil so you can use it. So repurposing things is really important. And now you can buy water in aluminum cans. You don't have to use plastic bottles. And I don't use plastic bottles at all. But, some people like that. So I'm like, well, try aluminum. It actually makes the water taste better. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, too, because you can buy water in cardboard.
Yes.
And you'd think it would taste awful. It tastes better than plastic.
Yep. No, I like those boxes. Yeah, they're cool. They're really nice. I agree. And you're right. It's always a thing. I'm sitting here right now with a plastic cup from a coffee place, and it has a reusable straw in it because I didn't have my backpack on me, and it doesn't have the lid. And because I keep a reusable straw, I keep like 6 of them on me at all times. But I didn't today. But that's okay because I do most of the time and nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
exactly.
We and I often take these things and use them for like pets and stuff because I have like pet homes and so I will use those for like straws for like enrichment and stuff. And yeah, there are ways to do that.
A few years ago in one of our goodie bags that we gave to our supporters of Earth Bash, I had a little case with a rubber straw in it, reusable. Mm-hmm. And the other night I was at my son's house in Hopedale, and I gave my granddaughter a seltzer. And she opened up the drawer, and she took out that straw and put it in her seltzer. And I was like, oh, jeez, someone's listening to me. I'm so happy. And she looked at me like, what? What do you... Are those straws making you happy? And I was like, yes, I'm very excited about this.
That's awesome.
So I have paper straws at home for that, but I also have glass straws because I like the cleanness of the glass straws.
Sure.
But the rubber ones work great too, and you can fold them up and put them in your little pocket. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of bamboo stuff too. I keep bamboo utensils on me and bamboo straws, and bamboo's so reusable. I love it all. Yeah, you can make a difference, and even if that difference only impacts one animal, isn't that worth it? Like,
it is
cool.
worth it.
Why not?
I think people don't realize, too, that plastic bags, even in the rainforest, bad in the ocean, just as bad in the rainforest. Animals can choke on them. Mm-hmm. And I can spot a plastic bag a mile away, I'm telling you.
So before we wrap things up, the one thing that I always have to ask is, so you said there are going to be some ambassadors here. So let's talk about some of the animals that people are going to get to see. Yes.
Well, for the VIP, for the Earth Bash, people can sign up for a sloth encounter or a rhino encounter. Ooh. That money goes towards conservation. Nice. And, I have a young man that I've been working with for a number of years. He started coming here, I think he said when he was 5, 6, something like that. Well, when he was 10, he asked me if he could do a rhino encounter because the cutoff date is you have to be 12 years old. Insurance, all that, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I approved his request for a rhino encounter. And that experience, he told me, changed his life. He's 14 now. He has raised over $2,500 for rhino conservation on his own.
That's amazing.
On his own. And I am in the process of doing a video about how an experience with an animal can change and alter and improve your life. And we're working on that. I'm also on the board for the Zoo Association of America, ZAA, and we are working on that this year too. So we want to show people how impactful an experience with an animal can be. You know, we do all of our animal encounters in an extremely safe environment. And as a matter of fact, out of all the large fauna that we have at our zoo, I have to say the rhinos are the mellowest. Well, why is that? Well, they don't have any natural predators. They have poachers that are killing them for their horns, which do nothing for medicine, but they're very calm. I call them the rhino dogs. Now, can they get agitated and run or jump? Sure, absolutely. They're a rhino.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can scratch them behind their ears, and they love that. Sometimes they'll actually lay down and take a little snooze because they love to get the scratches. I mean, think about it. You just touched your neck, right? How many times do we touch our heads, our necks, whatever, scratch something? A rhino can't do that.
Right.
When they get an ear scratch, they are just loving it. Oh, you can see it, the look on their faces, you know, and you can't do that with a giraffe. A giraffe's a prey animal.
Right.
You know, the second you go to touch it on its head or anything, they're going to jump back. You know, it's just a natural instinct for them. So, but we do giraffes feedings at Southwick Zoo, and those are really cool, but you feed them browse. So you can't scratch their heads and stuff like that. And then the sloth encounter, you know, and, you know, sometimes they're not in the mood. So we have to, you know, accommodate them as well as, you know, the people doing the encounter. But the animal ambassadors that we'll have for Earth Bash, we have Pickles the porcupine, and he was rejected by his mom. She was actually not a good mom. But I raised him, and he's now part of our animal ambassador program, and he's an African porcupine, and he is the coolest thing ever. And you would never guess that this porcupine would actually sit in your lap and get ear scratches.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And then we have, you know, other animals that we use in programs. Some you can't touch, like macaws, parrots. And then we have some snakes and lizards. And snakes are always the animal that you usually can touch, but people kind of get turned off by them a little bit. I particularly have an affinity for our boa constrictor because he's a big guy and he's usually very chill. It's the snakes that you kind of happen upon when you're walking in the lawn, right? And it startles you. And I think that's one of the things that people don't like is how quickly they move. So, and then we have other animals like ferrets and hedgehogs and tenrecs and stuff like that that people can interact with. And they will all be a part of our Earth Bash. So I'm very excited about that.
That's awesome. I love ambassadors. I have two things that I want to say about that. First of all, y'all need a binturong. I'm just putting that out into the world. I need you to get a binturong.
I raised binturongs for years, many years ago, because we had a pair of binturongs, and for whatever reason, the female binturong we had never raised her offspring.
Interesting.
So twice a year, we would have litters of binturongs, and they would get the blow dryer treatment, I call it, wrapped in a towel, put in a shoebox, and we raised binturongs. That was probably about 20 years ago. So we raised a lot of binturongs here, and they're really cool ambassador animals.
They are. I love that.
They are really cool. And we haven't had binturongs in a few years now.
I know, not since I've been coming.
Yeah.
I need y'all to get some binturongs. They're one of my favorite animals.
And they're so
cool. They are
cool.
great ambassadors. And I think they give people the unique chance to get hands-on or close-up to, depending on the individual, a species that is kind of big and scary looking, but then is so chill and so nice and I love them.
Yeah.
I'm always.
They do all have different personalities.
They do.
So
I have met many. Yes.
We had one that I used in programs for quite some time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was cool. Her name was China, actually.
Nice. I'm just floating it out there. I think
you're putting the vibe out.
I will make a nice contribution to Earth if y'all get a binturong. Just saying.
Ooh, okay.
But then the other thing that I wanted to say is just, you're talking about, and I think it's interesting that you're not only looking into this, but ZAA is as well. But the number of people that I have interviewed for this podcast. So we are talking about people in the field that can tell you the reason that they got into the field, and it was an early animal experience, or even sometimes a later animal experience, is huge, including myself. I never cared about animals that much when I was like a kid. And then my parents took me to our town park to ride an elephant. That's not okay, right? We all know that's not okay now. But at the time, none of us knew that.
It was a different world.
But I got on that elephant and I fell in love with animals. And I am convinced that Rossifari would not exist if I had not had a meaningful experience with an animal. Now, again, should it have been a safer, but that's what good zoos provide. That's what accredited zoos provide. Those experiences, but in a better situation than bringing an elephant to a park.
Right,
you know,
right.
I would probably not be pleased if I knew the welfare standards of that elephant, but hey, it's okay. I was a little kid. But I've talked to so many people who have dedicated their lives to animal care or conservation or both because of an experience like that. And it's been one of the common threads throughout the podcast. So when people do talk to me about, I don't like ambassador animals. I don't like the idea of, being forced to work and stuff like that, which first of all, we know they're not forced. We talk about that a lot. But beyond that, just as you're looking at yes. And I can tell you, so many people that I talk to have had that experience. It's astonishing. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And that's the part too. What I was saying is I think people misread that this is enriching for the animals too. So, and every animal has its own individual story. There's elephant sanctuaries now and zoos are sending their elephants off. But you have to look at the big picture and the individual animal at the same time. You can't just say all zoos are bad for elephants. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work that way.
Nope.
And, you have to take the individuals into account too. Now, if I could ask our lions, okay, would you rather stay here or go live out in the wild? I can pretty much guarantee you they'd choose here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are fed. There's no drought. They're not going to have to worry about disease. They have a beautiful enclosure, and they're extremely healthy. Mm-hmm. For those of us that have traveled out into the wild and seen lions in the wild, our lions are much better looking, I have to say. And, you can't say that for all animals, but... And again, look at the individual, look at the species, look what's happening to them out in the wild. And, look at Nat Geo. Mm-hmm. Watch a story on a mother. Let's take a lion again, right? So let's watch a story on a female lion raising her cubs. I did that one day, and I was like, this is the most depressing thing I've seen in a while. One cub got eaten by an alligator right off the bat. The second one broke its back, and she just left it and walked away. That's nature. Yep. That's survival of the fittest. And that's why the gene pool out in the wild is usually much stronger. And we need to capitalize on that as well. We need to keep our gene pool strong for our future, whatever happens on our planet. That's really important and very valuable.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting just yesterday. So today is May 31st, and May 30th is World Sea Lion Day. And I have had some amazing experiences with sea lions. And so I put up a post of 20 pictures of sea lions, and a whole lot of them were me getting kisses and stuff like that, because they're great at that stuff, Mm-hmm. But one of them that they put up was a picture that I love, that is just from when I was at La Jolla. And it's wild sea lions, in their natural habitat, all hanging out together. And I looked at that picture, and my first thought was like, I could see how somebody could look at this and think, oh, they shouldn't be in human care because look at how happy they are in the wild. Mm-hmm. But if you zoom in, almost every one of them has scars and scabs and injuries galore, and one's missing an eye and one's missing, half a flipper. And I remember when I took that photo, a big fight broke out between a bunch of them, and they were beating the crap out of each other. And I was just like, Yeah, no, when you really look at it, I've had a theory for a while now, and I certainly do not mean to put down anybody that did this amazing work back in the 80s, 90s, whatever, when all these documentaries came out, all the David Attenborough stuff and everything. But they would spend all this time finding the most pristine scenes of nature. And I think because of that, people watch that and think that's what nature is. It's beautiful and wonderful, and these animals deserve to be there. And there's some of that, but there's the older documentaries hide a lot of what you're talking about. Now, the more recent Nat Geo ones are showing the fierceness of nature. But back then, those older documentaries, animals should live in that.
It's so
Unfortunately,
funny
it's just
you
not
say
there.
that, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, what about the music they play? Right? The soothing music, the whole thing wraps you up in an envelope of arms hugging you, right?
Yep.
And it's not quite like that.
Not at all.
It's interesting because there was a hunting ranch. I think it was in Texas. Well, there's hunting ranches everywhere, but I think it was in Texas, and they had scimitar horned oryx. Was it scimitar horn? I think it was. But regardless. So, and people were all up in arms that this was a hunting ranch. Well, they returned the species back out into the wild, six of individuals. And what happened, because it was a hunting ranch, the ones that went were the strongest. They survived the hunting, right? So again, it's survival of the fittest. We've lost that. We've certainly lost it with humans. And no doubt. And so those individuals survived. Are there other variables? Oh, gosh, yes. Mm-hmm. They went to Sudan, a war broke out. So that didn't work out well. But, there's all these variables that I think people need to, instead of offering, assumptions and things, look into this. There's so much to know. Mm-hmm. There's so many different things about animals in the wild and in captive care and different types of human care that can thrive. And I think that's valuable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, this has been fun, but it's time to wrap up. So how can people help Earth?
Well, people can make a donation. That's the easiest way to help Earth. We have on our website, earthltd.org, different ways you can donate in conservation. And I earmark things depending upon what people make a donation for, rhino conservation or whatever it may be. We support many different organizations worldwide. The Nyasa Lion Project, Protecto Tiki in Colombia, as well as Cheetah Outreach Trust and the Trumpeter Swan Project, Project Rhino, Worthwhile Africa. So a lot of organizations, and the people that are working within those organizations are absolutely fascinating. I admire so much people working in the field. And, if money's earmarked for something specific, we always send that along. And the Connection Center, we're taking donations now for the Connection Center, too, to continue with the project and the massive amount of money that's going out the window. So
Fair. And then it is time. It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari Poop Story.
I was once in a boat off the coast of Ecuador, and there was a lady feeding the pelicans. And I said, please don't keep feeding those pelicans. Have you ever seen a pelican poop? And she kept feeding them, and I got pooped on the head by a big brown pelican, and it was disgusting. The one I think of the most, though, when I was actually doing a program at a college in Worcester, and I had like a 50-pound sulcata tortoise, and I was holding him on, I had my leg bent, holding him on my knee, and he decided to go. And I don't know if you've ever seen a large tortoise poop and pee. It is gross. And it went everywhere.
Amazing.
And I have to tell you one more.
Sure.
I was raising this monkey because he was born weak and small and his mom couldn't take care of him. Well, he was sitting on my head while I was doing a an infomercial or something like that for an advertising company. They asked me to talk about Earth, and they were going to do some marketing. And while I was talking, he peed in my ear. So when we were done talking, she goes, "You did great." I said, "It was really hard to get through that because the monkey was peeing in my ear." And she couldn't believe it. So
that's amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
absolutely. It was a blast. It was so nice to see you again, too.
Yay. You know, I think that Betsey has some of the coolest stories, and I feel like, geez, whenever we're just hanging out and talking, not even doing the podcast, she also just tells me other cool stories. That is a person that I could have on here time and again, and never repeat a story and always have them be amazing and fascinating. And I love that so much. So thank you, Betsey, for coming on and for sharing all of the exciting things. I love the idea of like being a visionary and having these ideas and then just being able to build them and make them happen. But also like, you know, the ability to change what you are envisioning and to change with the times. And yeah, I don't know. I loved all of that very, very much. So, with that said, I'm going to get going here. But before I do, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Shank, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, Kevin Williams, and Cormac McMuffin. Don't forget that you can support the podcast for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. And there's some cool stuff that you get if you do that. And with all of that said, we'll be back here on Friday for Zoo News. And until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.